Don't open the door. The nightmare that followed me home. It started with a single knock, soft, hesitant, barely noticeable against the rhythmic patter of rain on the windows. James sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. The digital clock on his nightstand blinked 3:12 a.m., bathed in glaring red numbers. Another knock, louder this time. James frowned. He lived alone. His apartment was on the third floor. He would be knocking at this hour. And more importantly, how? Sliding out of bed, he hesitated before approaching the door. The peephole revealed nothing but darkness. No figure, no movement. Just the dim glow of the hallway, light stretching into the empty corridor. His heartbeat quickened. A third knock, now more insistent. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice hoarse from sleep. Silence. Still, something about that silence was wrong. Not the normal, peaceful kind. It felt expectant, as if someone was standing just beyond his vision, waiting. James's fingers hovered over the lock. Every rational thought told him to turn around, go back, to bed, and ignore it. True, but curiosity clawed at him. Taking a deep breath, he unlocked the door, capped, and pulled it open. The hallway was empty. Only the flickering light above cast eerie shadows along the walls. But then he noticed it. A single, wet footprint just beyond his doorway, not leading to his door, but away from it. And that's when he heard it. From inside his apartment, he whispered, "You shouldn't have opened the door." James froze. His breath caught in his throat as the words seemed to echo through the darkness of his apartment. His mind raced. Did someone get in? That was impossible. The only way inside was through. The door he had just opened, and the hallway had been empty. He turned, his eyes scanning the room, the soft glow from the streetlights outside barely illuminated his living room. Everything looked the same, silent, still. Then the whisper came again. "You shouldn't have opened the door." Back. This time it was closer. James lunged for the light switch, flooding the room with brightness. His heart pounded as he turned in. Circles, scanning every corner. Nothing. The room was empty. But the air felt heavy, thick, like someone was standing right beside him, watching. He took a shaky step back, coughed, and caught something in his peripheral vision on the floor, near the entrance. Another wet footprint. But this one was different. The first footprint had been outside his door, leading away. This one was inside, cave and facing him. James felt his stomach twist. He backed away, nearly tripping over his coffee table. "Hello," he called out, though he didn't know why. He didn't want an answer. The room was silent, too silent, the kind of silence that made your ears ring. His mind raced. Maybe he was imagining things. Maybe he was still half asleep. Maybe. The bathroom door creaked open. James whipped around. The door had been closed. He was sure of it. The only window in there was too small for anyone to climb through. He stared at the dark gap between the door and the frame. A deep, suffocating feeling, cough of dread crept into his chest. He knew someone nor something was in there. And then he saw it, a hand. Pale, almost grayish, just barely visible through the darkness of the bathroom. It gripped the doorframe, fingers long and unmoving. James's blood turned to ice. Cells, and then it moved slowly. A single finger curled, beckoning him forward. James stumbled backward, his body screaming at him to run. But he couldn't. He was frozen, trapped in place by some unseen force. The hand disappeared, came into the darkness of the bathroom. Then a footstep. Not his, not soft, not hesitant, heavy, wet. Something was deliberate. The light flickered. James forced himself to move, bolting, toward the front door. He didn't care what it was. He didn't care if he looked crazy running out. Of his own apartment. At 3 a.m. He just knew. He needed to leave. His fingers fumbled with the lock. His pulse pounded in his ears. Behind him, the footsteps got closer. He wrenched the door open and sprinted into the hallway, slamming it shut behind him. The old lady from apartment 37 cracked, opened her door, peering at him through sired, wrinkled eyes. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked, voice laced with concern. James swallowed, his breathing ragged. "There's someone in my apartment," he whispered. The old woman's face paled. She took a slow step back, shaking her head. "Oh, honey," she murmured. "God, that apartment's been empty for years." James felt his entire body go numb. Empty, that wasn't possible. He had been living there for months. "You must be mistaken," he stammered. A loud bang echoed from inside. His apartment, like something heavy, had fallen. His stomach churned. The old woman's face twisted in something between fear and sadness. She reached out a frail hand, resting it lightly on his arm. Don't go back inside," she whispered. James turned toward his door. His mind screamed at him to listen, to run. But then he saw it. From beneath the doorframe, a shadow stretched out, not the shape of feet, not a person's shadow. Something wrong. It shifted, twisted, grew. And then, from the other side of the door, a voice that wasn't his own whispered, "Q already let me in." The hallway light flickered. James stepped back, the realization hitting him like a freight train. This thing, whatever it was, had been waiting for him to open. Dark. And now it was inside. The old woman's grip on his arm tightened. "Come with me," she urged, her voice almost pleading. "Don't turn around. Don't look at it. Just come with me." James's body moved on autopilot, following her into her apartment. The moment she shut the door, the air felt lighter, the heaviness lifted, as if whatever had latched onto him couldn't follow. The old woman locked the door and turned to face him. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "I don't know what you let in, dear," she whispered, "but I know one thing for sure." James swallowed hard, his body still shaking. "What?" She met his eyes, her expression grim. "It won't leave until it takes something with it." James barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he swore he could hear it. Faint whispers, too soft, to make out. The sound of wet, Sid's footsteps pacing. It was a single grainy image of him slipped from inside his apartment. James dropped his phone. His mind raced. How? His breath hitched as another message appeared. Come home. His vision blurred. The weight in his chest grew unbearable. He needed to leave immediately. Another message, this time a video. James hesitated before pressing play. The screen flickered. It was his apartment, the bathroom door, slowly creaking open. Then a figure stepped out, tall, unnaturally thin, its skin gray and wet, like something that had been underwater for too long. And where its face should have been was his own. The screen went black. A final message appeared. You'll let me in. Now I let you out. A knock echoed from the old woman's front door. Soft, hesitant. James's phone vibrated. One last time. Time waiting.